Yes, and of course, the first landfall will be in Florida. Florida's governor has already declared a state of emergency as time is running out before impact. Fox Weather is your hurricane HQ, and as we track this tropical trouble, America's weather team is fanned out all across the country, bringing you exclusive coverage that you can't get anywhere else. And today, our team is growing a whole lot bigger. We are happy to announce the addition of meteorologist who has done more than 25,000 live shots. You heard me right. 25,000 live shots. He has covered 99 tropical storms. He is the only, the wonderful, the legendary storm specialist, Mike Seidel. Mike, I am very happy to be the one that gets to announce this addition to our family. You are a dear friend. You're such a great professional. This is actually going to be your 100th storm. Incredible. How are things looking this morning in Florida?
Well, things this morning look great. It's good to be here on Fox Weather. Good morning from North Redington Beach, where the temperature is a comfortable 78. But in addition to what we're worried about tonight and tomorrow, we're concerned today about safety from heat. The heat index values today here in the Tampa Bay area could top out at 110 degrees. So there is a heat advisory into this evening. Now back to the depression, which is likely going to become Debby sometime today. We're going to be here for you through the weekend. Maybe not on this beach, but certainly on the Gulf Coast. Here's the Gulf Coast. Here's the water. You know what the water temperature is right now? 90 degrees. It's like bath water. And folks getting an early morning dip in the water. So there's a lot of heat energy. We call it oceanic heat content with that storm, that depression to feed on. Now, we're not expecting rapid intensification by any means, but a slow process tonight and tomorrow. In fact, as it goes by to our west, it's going to hook back into the northeast. Right now, it's still moving west-northwest, but it's going to make that turn, feeling that trough over the U.S., eastern U.S. And because the intensity forecast is in question, will it be a hurricane? Will it not be a hurricane? When it makes landfall late tomorrow night and Monday morning in the Big Bend of Florida north of here, it could be a Category 1 hurricane, but prepare for one of those. The concern here is surge. We're expecting a 2 to 4 foot storm surge. That means the water is going to come in on a southeast wind. Keep in mind, Tampa Bay is not in the cone. That doesn't mean we won't feel the impacts. Remember that. Just because you're not in the cone, we're going to have impacts. The storm surge, and for those of you away from the coast, there's going to be a lot of heavy rain. We're thinking 6 to 10 inches of rain. Also, those outer bands on the east side could produce some quick spin-up tornadoes late tonight and tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised to see a tornado watch in this area. As far as surge goes, remember Idalia last year, right before Labor Day weekend, set the record in the East Bay gauge of 5.7 feet. We're not expecting anything that high. It was a stronger storm, and it was a bit closer to the coast. So Britta and Ian, we're going to be here for you. Good to be here on Fox Weather. Beautiful start to the morning. We do expect some thunderstorms though to start popping early this afternoon, but the real brunt of the storm, the timing, is overnight tonight into Sunday as it moves on through. And then the big question later in the forecast period, does it go scooting off up the southeast coast off Hatteras via the American model, the GFS, or does it do the European forecast and kind of hover and hang out off the Carolinas and Georgia? We'll see how that pans out. First things first, though, the impacts in Florida kicking in later today and tonight.
Yeah, we got to get through the first step first. Mike, really quick before we let you go, we're going to get on to our hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, next. But I did want to ask you, obviously this is the first taste of the tropics this year for Florida. What's the feel? I mean, when you got there, it's been almost a year. Idalia impacting all these areas last year. What was the chatter across town when you landed?
Well, you could hear people on the plane and in the airport last night talking about, there's a tropical storm coming. So there's certainly the buzz on the streets and through the airports and the restaurants and the bars that we've got something coming. I think they realize in this day and age of social media, they get their information so fast that it's not expected to be a major hit. And Tampa has been living a charmed life. They haven't had a major hit in 100 years. Remember Charlie in 2013, that Friday the 13th in August, made a quick right turn, missed Tampa. Then we had Ian, and it came in south of here. Last year, Idalia went by us, and it's highly likely that what will become Tropical Storm Debby will go east of here by about 100 or miles or so. But again, heavy rainfall, potentially a few spin-ups, and the storm surge on the coast likely to be the big issues with wind gust. I would say gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour at this point in those squalls, those tropical squalls that have the gustier winds.
Well, Mike, we look forward to seeing your coverage, your 100th named storm that you have tracked. Welcome to the family. We'll check in with you soon.
Thank you very much. Good to be here, Britta. And we'll talk to you in about 30 minutes.
Absolutely. Well,
time is running out to prepare. Fox Weather, we're your Hurricane HQ, and we'll continue to track this trouble all weekend long. Storm specialist and meteorologist Mike Seidel joins us again from North Redington Beach, south of Clearwater. Mike, long time no see. You mentioned the 90-degree temperatures just off Clearwater. The uniqueness of the Eastern Gulf, can we talk about that just for a minute and why we see such warm waters, not just this time of year, but each season around this time?
Well, one of the reasons is the water is relatively shallow, and that's a concern because of the bathymetry, how the coast is set up here and up to the Big Bend. The same size storm in some areas with the same intensity and onshore push would causes different impacts to different areas as far as the run up and the overwash and the storm surge. So here, it doesn't get incredibly deep as you go out. Also, the water is warm because it's a smaller body of water. We're not talking about the wide Atlantic or Caribbean where water temperatures right now, you can check beaches, some of your Caribbean spots, maybe 84, maybe you find an 85, but you won't find any 90-degree water. But it takes more than just warm water. You got to have convection, thunderstorms to get their act together. That is what's happening right now between Cuba and Key West. And we do expect this to become Tropical Storm Debby today and then move right off the coast tomorrow afternoon. That's when we'll have the worst weather here. Late tonight through Sunday, high tide around lunchtime. We'll see how much the beach goes underwater. The Weather Service Hurricane Center forecasting a surge of 2 to 4 feet. And there's not much elevation here. Looks like they've had a bit of some beach erosion. If you look down here, it's hard to see. Maybe about 6 to 8 inch drop here with a high tide and the tide now beginning to come in. Notice the flag, the wind is blowing just about down the coast here, which make the wind basically from the north. I'm sorry, I grew up on the East Coast. I've lost what side of the coast I'm in. The wind is blowing basically coming in from the south. Occasionally it'll go southeast, sometimes a little southwest. But we don't have a whole lot of wind. That's going to change tonight and tomorrow as we start getting those outer bands. There will be some storms out here this afternoon, not really directly impacted with the future Debby, but it will cool us off. Temperatures now are already in the mid-80s. Heat index values now approaching 95, and we do have a heat advisory. So the other issue today, before we even get the impacts from Debby, is the excessive heat here in Florida with the heat index today. Could top out around 110 degrees. So thankfully we have a bit of a breeze. And guys, you could go in the water, but at 90 degrees, it's not very refreshing. I've been in 90-degree water. It's like soup.
Yeah, 90 degrees sounds a bit warm. Maybe that's a cooler hot tub, but I mean, you could pass as a hot tub. Hey, I gotta imagine that lighter sand, Mike. You've been along several beaches in your career. That lighter sand will stay cool. We appreciate the lighter colors. Feels good between the toes this morning.
Yeah, it's the sugar stand from the quartz. Gulf Coast, Florida, and then all the way over towards Mississippi, Alabama. Some of the most beautiful beaches in the world are right here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and including Mississippi and Alabama because of this sugar white sand. It's just gorgeous. Look at this.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, I love my beaches up in Delaware and Maryland, but I'm sorry, the sand is not this. It's a coarser sand. And it just doesn't cut mustard when you've got this out here. But it also reflects a lot of sunlight. So again, another day where you just got to throw lots of sunscreen on. But anytime you can get a breeze, it feels pretty good out here at this point.
I'd imagine so. Well, we appreciate the update. Mike Seidel coming to us live just north of Clearwater in North Redington Beach this morning in Florida. Appreciate it, Mike. America's weather team, we are positioned across the southeast, bringing you a coverage all weekend long as this storm begins to organize. Meteorologist and storm specialist Mike Seidel is live in North Redington Beach, Florida, with the latest. Mike, 25,000 live shots, right? By the end of the day, we're going to get 26,000 out of you. The temperatures, let's start with the heat, Mike, because that's the thing you've been talking about all morning long. It's hot, and with tropical systems, you often have such a contrast, right? You have nice summer-like weather, and then boom, here comes the storm.
Yeah, and about the only way to cool off in Florida this time of the year is some rain, and we will get some storms and showers this afternoon, but the brunt of the rain from what is going to be Debby in the short term, Tropical Storm Debby, will fall later tonight through Sunday. By Monday, it's all out of here. Even by late tomorrow night, it's gone. It's going to be more of an impact, we think, up in the Big Bend where they have a hurricane watch. Here in the Tampa Bay area, it's a tropical storm warning. The water is toasty warm, right around 90 degrees. That's about as warm as you'll see it anywhere on the planet in the Western Hemisphere. Now you get over towards the Middle East, that's a whole different story, like the Gulf of Aqaba. But here, 90 is warm, and that certainly fuels storms that are associated with the hurricane. You know, it's like a big machine with what could become a hurricane. So we've got that going against us. There's not a tremendous amount of wind shear, so we think that it's going to strengthen. That's what the Hurricane Center is saying, up into a strong tropical storm before landfall. But they have the hurricane watch up just in case it becomes a Category 1 hurricane. Now, the impacts between a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm and a 75-mile-an-hour hurricane are no different, really. It's just the nomenclature. You got to draw the line somewhere. Here, the impact surge. We're forecasting a 2 to 4 foot storm surge from the Hurricane Center. So you can see the beach relatively flat. There's not much elevation change, so wouldn't be surprised, based on the high tide at noon tomorrow, and then based on when we get the worst of the push from that onshore wind from the south and southeast, that this beach goes underwater like it did with Idalia. But Idalia was a different animal. It was a stronger storm as a hurricane as it came by. The East Bay gauge in Tampa set a record last August at 5.7 feet. We don't expect the surge to be that high. So Kendall and Stephen, keeping an eye on the developments to our south. Today's a good beach day. I'll find some shade, throw on the sunscreen, stay hydrated. Heat index now is getting close to 100 degrees here mid-morning in the Tampa Bay area.
Wow, nearly 100 degrees. That is
You
steamy.
can cool off by 10 degrees if you get in the water. That's what we've established this morning.
Good point,
Yeah.
good point. I mean,
Exactly.
Today, like you mentioned, good beach day. The second half of the weekend, not so much. Oh, there you go for it. See how the water feels.
Let me
Test it out for us.
Man, I was in 90-degree water in Miami Beach, South Beach, a couple times a few years back with tropical systems. And yeah, this wouldn't be even bad for a hot tub. I know most hot tubs up around 100, 101, but this is, let me see.
The breeze helps a little bit. We know that.
You know, the dew point's in the mid-70s, so I got a breeze. I'm trying to feel. The evaporative cooling is negligible. So you're going to have to stay in the water or just go up and take one of these outdoor showers, which will cool you off briefly. That's what I like to do on a hot day, is get under those showers on the beach and just,
Are
like
you
that.
sweaty
But
or wet?
yeah, it's one of those days, one of those Florida days.
Both things are salty. And really, too, Mike, when we talk about this hurricane season, the Western Gulf has seen all the activity, quite literally. We've not had a named system yet traverse through the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So this is an untapped part of the Gulf that we're going to see get pretty active, looks like.
Yeah, Alberto and Beryl. Cindy was kind of like a 6-hour event all over in Texas. And now we switch the action to the eastern Gulf and likely the southeast, I should say the southwest Atlantic, Georgia, the Carolinas, based on what happens down the road between the European model, which gets this thing and gets stuck with a lack of steering flow, or the GFS American model, which wants to take it northeast up towards the Outer Banks next week.
So there's still a few unknowns, but what we know for sure is that widespread impacts are on the way for millions of Americans. Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel, thank you so much, and we'll be checking in with you later this morning.
Fall. And we'll have much more on this coming up, Kendall, but as it moves perhaps over land, maybe back into the Atlantic, a lot of uncertainty, but it is shaping up to be perhaps a pretty significant storm for Georgia, South Carolina, even as far north as North Carolina.
And the race is on across Florida to prepare ahead of Tropical Depression 4 and likely soon to be Debby's arrival in the early morning hours on Monday. The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, declaring a state of emergency ahead of the storm, advising residents to complete storm preparations now as time is quickly running out.
America's weather team is positioned across the southeast, bringing you exclusive coverage all weekend. And this morning, we welcome meteorologist and storm specialist Mike Seidel to the Fox Weather family. He joins us from North Redington Beach, Florida. It's roughly 30 miles or so from downtown Tampa. Mike, your career, it's taken you to almost every state in the United States, even outside the country. Cuba, for example, you were the first meteorologist to report live from Cuba during Tropical Storm Isaac in 2012. I bring that up only because the newest advisory came out from the Hurricane Center. Cuba, really the only thing in its way before we have this eventual tropical storm emerge into the Gulf.
Exactly, and once it gets into the water of the Gulf, it's not going to have any interaction with land, the friction with the higher hills and mountains of Cuba. So we're going to see how fast it intensifies. The official forecast does bring it up to a tropical storm later on today. Hurricane watches are up for certainly the Big Bend area that's north of here. The track, as they mentioned, has not changed much. It's going to come up and then start to go north and then northeast and then hook back towards the Big Bend, the area. Very unpopulated, fortunately, but for those up there like in Steenhatchee and Slopchoppy, in those areas north of Cedar Key, very susceptible to storm surge because of the bathymetry or the shape of the coast. It just doesn't go like that. It's very shallow, so the water will rush up. Speaking of water, the tide is coming in. We got these pools the kids like to play in, even myself. And we've had a little bit of beach erosion over the past couple days, but this is about 6 or 7 inches. But I'm looking right towards the hotel, and there is no elevation really, all the way up. It's basically flat. So you bring the water up 2 or 3 feet, that's the forecast surge, then it's going to cover the whole beach at some point tomorrow. Again, it's all a function, too, of the high tide. The high tide tomorrow is around lunchtime here at Clearwater Beach, North Redington, out on the Gulf Coast. So we'll keep an eye on that, certainly. So we got the surge issue and then the heavy rainfall issue. 6 to 10 inches of rain, plus or minus, across the west coast of Florida. And you know what that means? Ponding, flash flooding. There'll be a flood watch. That's a given, issued by the Weather Service out of Tampa Bay and Ruskin, coming up at some point later this afternoon. In the meantime, temperature now 88 at Tampa. Heat index is up to double 9, so we have double 8s and double 9s. And it's a hot day out here. We've got the heat advisory. Values could hit 110 this afternoon. The only saving grace is we will have showers and clouds coming up. On the radar, we've got them already in southwest Florida, Lee, Collier County, across the Alligator Alley. Also storms now and showers in South Florida. So eventually those are going to propagate in this direction and at least knock back the sunshine and hopefully knock back the temperatures, although it'll take care of the beach weather. And then the real muscle of this storm, expected to be a storm shortly, will impact here tomorrow, late tonight, tomorrow, and tomorrow night. In fact, on the track, it goes by our latitude from south to north sometime mid to late tomorrow morning. But that doesn't mean things are going to just end. No, there's a lot of rain bands, feeder bands on the forecast models on the backside, on the south and southwest side. And in those feeder bands, you have to be concerned about a possible tornado or two, a quick spin up. So we got everything in the mix: the storm surge, the localized inland flooding, potential for some severe weather. Wind gusts, that's a big question. 40 miles an hour, do we get a 50 mile an hour gust? Fortunately, until you get up to 60, you usually don't have too many issues with power. So we're going to think optimistically, at least here in the Tampa Bay area, that power is a minimal issue, a minimal impact with what is to become Debby shortly.
Looks like a lot of folks behind you, Mike, are thinking optimistically today, too. Pitching tents, enjoying it, got a nice day out there on the beach with the sun. Appreciate it. Thanks for the perspective. And again, welcome to the team. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel joining us here now.